Alright, I'm back with the new Destiny 2 video, and I did not actually read the TWAB yesterday. I didn't think it was going to be worth reading, but it kind of did end up being worth reading because they talked about crafting and all the changes that they're making to that. So instead, I wrote an article about that, and I'm going to read something else today. This is a new kind of interview excerpt from Stephen Totilo, who is a newsletter writer at Axios for the gaming division. He used to run Kotaku. You've probably heard of him. Definitely recommend you subscribe to this newsletter, as he has a lot of interesting gaming stuff that gets delivered periodically, and it's formatted in a nice kind of easy way. Probably better than my newsletter, except there are no EV pictures, so got the one up there. He gave me a heads up that this interview is coming out, and I was very curious to read it because I know it touches on kind of a number of things about the longer-term development of Destiny, touches on content vaulting and things like that. So I thought I would just go through this and kind of give my own commentary to, I think it's mostly Justin Truman who's being interviewed here, who is the general manager of the game right now. I think he has Mark Noseworthy's old job after him and Luke were elevated to be like masters of the Destiny universe or whatever their job title is now. So this is kind of in the wake of the launch of Witch Queen and looking forward to the future. So it says, the creators of Destiny 2 are learning to manage their ever-evolving hit sci-fi game as they go. The game's general manager, Justin Truman, tells Axios. Did not cadence that correctly. Why it matters, Bungie is now in its 5th year running Destiny 2, making the Bellevue, Washington-based studio one of the foremost experts in the kind of service-oriented live games that so many other studios are now trying to make. Trying and failing, for the most part. We just had this big drama with Gran Turismo is now a live game, and it was shut off for like 30 hours because of a bad patch, and you couldn't even play single player. It's hard to make live online games, in other words. In January, Sony announced that it was buying Bungie for $3.6 billion and specifically cited its expertise in live service games, an area where PlayStation has been weak. Case in point, Gran Turismo, which I just mentioned. Bungie's method. Hundreds of developers work on the game year-round as Destiny 2 evolves through weekly gameplay updates and storyline progression. The game could feel like a weekly TV show, as well as through 3-month specially themed seasons and near-annual bigger expansions. Some people have been asking me if I think that they're going to go back to September for Lightfall. No, I don't. I think they are definitely going to stay around the same time. I think we may get another expansion, a year from Witch Queen, but again, that would not be in the fall. They're not going to rush up the schedule to get it out for September. I believe they kind of want to stay out of the September-October melee where there's going to be a ton of other games released. Although, obviously, we know that with all the game delays, this creates situations that are also not great, like Horizon, Forbidden West, and Elden Ring releasing the same week as Witch Queen. So that's not a guarantee you're going to avoid that. But I think you probably have a better chance than doing it in the fall. So this says, Bungie teams work on specific disciplines, an in-game rewards team, a seasonal activities team, and so on. That's a change from early Destiny when teams were divided by content releases such as a specific expansion. Yeah, this is back in the day when they were doing full kind of DLCs. There's the Warmind team, and then there's another team working on the next thing after that, Taken King or whatever. I assumed that they were working on, there would be a team for a season specifically, and maybe there is to some extent, but I think it's okay, we're in the seasonal rewards department, so you're kind of designing rewards across seasons, you're designing activities across seasons rather than everything being kind of segmented into timelines. So this says, Destiny 2's direction used to feel more inconsistent as different teams oversaw different phases of its life cycle. But now each piece of the game has these expert owners that are evolving that part of Destiny over multiple years. As we can see, if you have people kind of working on the grand scope across a longer term, that creates kind of a more cohesive narrative and structure kind of over the long term. It even as recently as maybe 2 years ago, things used to feel pretty disjointed and pretty separate from one another. Back when you had Season of the Forge, Season of the Drifter, and Season of whatever it's called, Opulence. Those were very 3 very distinct entities that had nothing to do with each other. They may have been good and substantive, at least 2 of the 3. That was also back when Bungie had support studios, but now these days, the last 2 years, we have had seasons that kind of all flow into each other. Maybe this year more than last year even. Even last year was a little disjointed, I would say. So this seems to be kind of the new norm. The studios also grappled with workplace toxicity issues, acknowledging after an IGN investigation last year that it needed to do more to support its people and outline ongoing changes. We've been continuing to push on those fronts, Truman says. Well, that's something. All this, but no Destiny 3. We want it to be a single evolving world, Truman tells Axios. We're trying to make Disneyland, right? And you don't build Disneyland 2. You update it and improve it and make it more modern. Yeah, I'm kind of reminded of growing up. I went to Cedar Point a lot, and what they would do with Cedar Point is like there's only so much land in that little Sandusky Peninsula. So what they would do is they would carve out some of the old, crappier roller coasters and then put new ones there instead. And I guess that is the theory behind content vaulting, except it's a little harder to accept that in a digital space because you wouldn't imagine there's those kind of, quote, land restrictions. But this goes into that a little bit later, which that is kind of an interesting analogy, though. But they did. There was Destiny 1, launched in 2014. Truman says a single game was always the vision as he diplomatically avoids naming the game's former publisher, Activision. It was harder for us to maintain the true spirit of this vision until we were able to be creatively independent and direct how we saw the Destiny world could go. So this is the old Overwatch 2 problem where Activision very clearly wanted like all of these games to eventually have direct sequels because sequels can sell more box copies. We saw this with Destiny 2, where Destiny 2 was delayed for a year after it was supposed to be out, but even then it was like no one really wanted to like kind of hard start over, and I think it definitely created a rift there because it was sort of mandated when I think from the start Bungie just wanted Destiny to be Destiny and just sort of last indefinitely. I do believe we are on track to get something like resembling a Destiny 3 someday, but that is not going to be for a very, very long time. Like we know that we have 2 more expansions for Destiny 2's current arc, and then they've said there will be another Destiny arc past that, and I'm guessing an arc is 3 expansions, so that's what, 5 years. So, and then maybe we can talk about, you know, an engine upgrade and a full sequel. But even then, I highly doubt it would be called Destiny 3. I think it'll just be Destiny, and we will see if anything carries over to that, but that is my current theory. The vaulting controversy, quote unquote. As Bungie adds, it subtracts missions, planets, and storylines, much of it material players paid for, removing them from the game. Bungie deleted Destiny 2's introductory campaign, The Red War, in 2020, and axed the story-driven half of its acclaimed 2018 expansion, Forsaken, early this year. Bungie describes vaulting as an effort to control file sizes. The game takes up about 100 gigabytes, I think it's less than that now, focus development, and keep the player base from fracturing across too many activities. Past content becomes an anchor that prevents you from moving forward and creating new content, Truman says. With Forsaken, Bungie spared one of its 2 main explorable zones, the Dreaming City, and many of its unlockable rewards. Truman says all of that was more endgame content, which the studio considers more evergreen. So that's interesting. I had a feeling that was true because Dreaming City has both the raid and the dungeon, so they didn't have to lose either of those by keeping the Dreaming City, whereas Tangled Shore had just a couple strikes, and they even saved one of those strikes. But I am guessing that the Forsaken being carved out of that is mainly due to file space reasons. That is what this kind of sounds like to me. I also know they've said in the past that they thought it would be confusing to have kind of evil Uldren in this one storyline, but then also have current day Crow in storylines being good, and they've talked about sunsetting Forsaken in the past, so I think we eventually got there. And then he goes on to talk about in the future on whether fans should expect 2020 expansion Beyond Light or 2022's Witch Queen to be someday vaulted as well. I don't know, Truman says. That is how we are currently managing the technical complexity, but he says increased storage options, including the cloud, could remove one need to vault, though development and platform restrictions could still be an issue. It's hard to tell what the story will look like 4 years from now. So that's at least opening the door that maybe content vaulting doesn't have to last forever, but I would guess as we continue to go, at least the next couple of years here, we will still see it. I mean, at the very least, they're going to be removing all seasonal content because they're not going to stack 6, 9, 12 seasons on top of each other. But at least this time around, I get, they carved out less. There was not anything in here about taking stuff out of the vaults. We have gotten a lot of kind of swirling rumors about Mars and things, and whether either Destiny 1 or Destiny 2 Mars zones may come back, but right now Mars only exists for the little alcove area and just the first campaign mission, although there was some like lore things like the Witness will be creating its army on Mars. It's like one of Savathun's 2 truths and 2 lies things. So I don't know. Keep an eye on Mars. New challenges. New players face a tricky onboarding process. Bungie has allowed seasonal content to linger longer to allow players to catch up, but vaulting makes it impossible for them to play the game's earliest chapters. I don't think we figured out exactly what is the right way for someone to feel like they're catching up and they get to participate in the right way. It was something that happened 2 years ago that has since been patched and changed so much, Truman says. The team is experimenting with solutions. Yeah, this remains a big problem. I think one of their biggest problems, the Red War wasn't like the greatest thing in Destiny history, but it was still pretty good. It was a pretty good introduction to Destiny 2. Before this, you could do Forsaken, and Forsaken, at the very least, was still a pretty solid kind of storyline at base, although that was paid. Now the first paid storyline is Shadowkeep, and I would argue that is the worst expansion for the game, really not one of my favorites overall. And then instead they have this like Shah Han introductory mission that like ends in a strike and like you get Risk Runner and like they gotta do more than that. And like onboarding I think is still a very, very tough problem to overcome, and I think a lot of new players just have like no idea what's going on or what they're doing, and that needs some work. Live events are also a work in progress after Bungie's early attempts at Fortnite-style game-wide live spectacles fizzled. Did they fizzle? I thought they were good. I know everyone was mad about waiting for the Almighty for 4 hours, but I still like that concept, and I like the one with the Traveler too. Truman points to a special multiplayer mission offered for just 1 week in February as a Destiny version of a live event. Nope, don't like that. As we know, this was when I was predicting the final Exorcism mission was going to happen any day now. And so they left it to the last week, and it became this one-time only thing that it was a very cool mission, and you could only play it once ever. I just, for some reason, like I'm separating these in my brain where like sitting in the tower waiting for something to happen at literally live, like literally this is all happening at the same moment for everyone, feels different to me than a mission that is live for a week that you can never see or play again except on YouTube. I feel like those are in different categories, and I don't like this version here. I know that they're kind of limited, probably from a technical perspective, in terms of how they can do live in-game events, because I think almost all of them have to be in the tower, because that's really the only shared space that even exists anymore, and there's probably only so much you can do there, but I wish they would figure out different ways to do this, and I don't think offering missions for a single week is a good way to do that, honestly. The mission was used to tee up the next expansion, though Bungie accidentally allowed players to skip a key cinematic scene that played at its conclusion. We learn, Truman says. Yeah, that wasn't great. And that happened to me, too. What's next? The living game keeps changing as Bungie yesterday announced big changes to a weapon crafting system introduced last month. Yep, that's what I was talking about. Read my article on that I wrote this morning. More seasons will follow this year, and at least 2 more expansions for the game have been announced. It's exciting because I feel like we're out on this frontier, Truman says. The comment is about the game's storytelling, but could apply to Destiny 2 overall. I also know we have not reached a destination. So that's an interesting look at the kind of broader picture of Destiny. Some things I agree with, some things I don't. Vaulting remains weird to me, and like it's very hard to explain to like people who play other games that like you're buying expansions that are then removed in 2 or 3 years or whatever it is, or the entire base game is now removed and new players just missed essentially the first like 2.5 years of the game. Still weird. I still think we need a better solution than what we have here, but hey, at least we got rid of weapon sunsetting. Anyway, I thought this was interesting, and he's done a few interviews like these, so yeah, subscribe to this newsletter. It's very good. I'll have the link in my description here. And yeah, we will see what's going on over this weekend. I still need to farm my last pulse rifle pattern, and that is kind of the only thing I'm working on now. I also need to get my my void bow up to level 20 and then get double enhanced perks on that for the super fast reload speed. So those are the 2 things I'm working on right now. And yeah, let me know what you guys are up to, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.